Hello and good morning. My name is Damien, the tall, friendly atheist dad, and a host of the Tall, Friendly Atheist Dad podcast. If you're looking for a podcast from an intellectual atheist perspective, head on over to anchor.fm/TFADad, head over to Twitter at TFADpod, and Facebook, facebook.com/TFADpod. Or, even better, www.tallfriendlyatheistdad.com. It's a pleasure to be with you today. Exciting times. My home city, Melbourne, has just had an earthquake. So about an hour ago, about 45 minutes ago, there was a 5.6 magnitude earthquake about 80 miles, 130 kilometres away. And yeah, us in Melbourne, we felt it. And it's like for about 30 seconds, the house was shaking and moving, and like the fans are swinging. And there is one friend I know who had their picture frame fall off the stand. Now I'm going to try to share a quick video with you as well, and I'll see if I can actually get it up. Hold on, I've got it downloaded there. So what I'll then do is, okay, let me just hit that. I will. Beautiful. So yeah, wherever you're watching in the world, yeah, hopefully it's an earthquake-free zone. But yeah, okay, where is the? Aha! All right, give me a sec. I'm gonna play this video for you. 3, 2, 1. And there is some mild swearing in there as well, so just be careful. So that is currently my... that was in my city about 45 minutes ago. And yeah, we just quickly come back. Now, I don't know exactly where that is. That looks like it's right near the city. Yeah, it looks like an older building, but yeah, you can kind of see, look at where it go up. Yeah, so that top part of the building's fallen and crumpled off. So it'll be on the news. So yeah, anyway, there's that. But yeah, this is part 2 of An Atheist Reads: Smith Wigglesworth, Apostle of Faith by Stanley Howard Frodsham. Now, I'm reading this one as something for me to do during coronavirus lockdowns. 2, also to get the historical thought of people who came before us and what they wrote and why. And 3, I read this book fervently as when I was a Christian. So yeah. So anyway, I'm kind of revisiting my past. So I'm just going to adjust my sound level so I can hear myself a bit better. But yeah, and let me just get that, put that there. So this is part 2. Obviously, part 2 comes after part 1. And part 1, if you jump onto the YouTube channel, so go to YouTube and look for the Tall, Friendly Atheist Dad podcast. You'll see playlists. I've got a cajillion books that I'm partway through reading. Last night, me, Maximo, and JJ, we did part 12 of I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist. But yeah, have a look through the playlist. There's a cajillion books I'm reading. So if you want to look for part 1 is in the playlist, and it should also be in the show notes as well. So this chapter is titled "An Helpmeet for Him." And I think it comes from the arcane practice of putting "an" in front of a word that starts with an H. So yeah. Anyway, so this is titled "An Helpmeet for Him," and it's a biography about an apparently awesome preacher and healer, or minister, should say. Yeah. So anyway, with the click of the fingers, 3, 2, 1. In the second part of The Pilgrim's Progress, Bunyan introduces us to one Mr. Greatheart, who guided and guarded Christiana and her sons on their way to the celestial city. The one whose story we are telling was a Mr. Greatheart. He surely had a great heart of love and loyalty to his master, for so often we have heard him say, "Isn't he a lovely Jesus?" And he also had a great heart of love for all his fellow pilgrims, especially the poor and needy, the sick and the suffering. So I'm just adjusting my brightness here. He once said to us, "All that I am today I owe, under God, to my precious wife. Oh, she was lovely." Mary Jane Featherston, whom God chose to be an helpmeet for him, came from a good Methodist family. Her father was a temperance lecturer. He was an heir to a large inheritance that had been made through liquor selling, but he had a conviction that filthy lucre secured through the damnation of souls would do him no good, and so he refused to touch a single penny of this tainted money. His daughter followed her father's principles of righteousness and holiness, and was always fearless in speaking her inner convictions. Now, reading son, do you have your iPad available? Could you find out what a temperance lecturer was? So I've got my warm reading son, noisy reading son. I'm going to give him a little project to do. Now he's listening in on the stream as well, so I better make sure not to swear. Poopy. Oh, there you go, poopy. I'll say poopy and knickers. He finds the word knickers funny for some reason. When he comes back in, I'll yell, "Knickers!" He had a small grin then. So yeah, so can you look up temperance union or temperance lecturer? So that word there, because I want to explain to anyone who may not know, and it's good having you around actually, because I can tell you to do things. Yeah, so just on that, so temperance lecturer, RER. Yep, hit it, and no, that's all right. What is a temperance society? So expand that one there. Yep. Okay, yes, yep. So according to the Google machine, the temperance movement is a social movement against the consumption of alcoholic beverages. Typically, the movement promotes alcohol education. It also demands the passage of new laws against the sale of alcohol, either regulations on the availability or the complete prohibition of it. So yeah, so this is back in the late 1800s, probably early 1900s as well, where what was I going to say? They had a thing about against alcohol, and there are still people today who believe that alcohol is a sin and is, even drinking a drop will lead you to hell, that kind of stuff. I don't. My position on alcohol is don't drink too much of it. If you're going to drink, don't drink too much. So yeah, so it's interesting that during these poor times, where people are scratching for $1, that her father was a temperance lecturer, but he got money from this. That to me is a bit weird. But anyway, this is the British people in the 1800s. Anyway, I'm going to continue with the book. So 3, 2, 1. When about 17 years of age, Mary Jane, or Polly, as she was often called, was placed in a milliner's store to learn the art of trimming hats and bonnets. This kind of work seemed too petty for her, so after a month, she decided to run away from her native town and all the restraints of home to seek fame and fortune in Bradford. But the Lord was watching over this handmaid to preserve her from evil. Polly accepted service in a large family in one of the big homes in Bradford. One night, she was in the centre of the city and was attracted by the sound of trumpets and the beating of drums to a meeting held in the open air. The Salvation Army was an entirely new thing in those days, and she looked at these people with great interest. When their open-air meeting was over, they marched down the streets of Bradford. She thought to herself, where are these silly people, who play as they march, going? She followed them to a dilapidated theatre building. Dare she go into a theatre? At home, she had been taught that such a place was unspeakably evil, but she was inquisitive. Looking this way and that to see if anybody who knew her was watching, she slipped in and found a seat at the top of the gallery. The service began, and her interest deepened as she listened to the bright singing and the lively witnessing of recent converts. The evangelist that night was Gypsy Tilly Smith, a sister of the famous Gypsy Rodney Smith, who was also a Salvation Army evangelist in those early days. The evangelist preached Christ with a great power. The young girl in the gallery yearned to know him and the power of his cleansing blood to wash away her sins. When the call was made for sinners to come and seek the Saviour, bless you,
Thank you.
Polly made her way from the top gallery to the penitent form, Salvation Army altar rail. At first she asked to be left alone as she called to the Lord to forgive her sins. Later, Tilly Smith knelt by her side and led her to a saving knowledge of the Lord Jesus Christ. When the assurance came that she was forgiven of all her sins, she jumped to her feet, threw her gloves in the air, and shouted, "Hallelujah, it is done." So I'm just going to move positions here. Can you move? Thank you. Yeah, so the idea of these anecdotes as, proof that, as proof of the existence of God or, stuff like that, just I find it very interesting that, the only thing that we can say, even let's presume God exists and God is capable of doing anything to anyone to prove his existence. The only thing we can say that God did was made people not feel miserable about them being human. And it's like, okay, and I can't help but see what sort of influence the wider culture had. I suppose I'm just trying to think. Let's say there was like a Muslim, like a mosque, people going down the street and playing trumpets and drums, and then going to a theatre and preaching about Muhammad or about Allah, or let's say Scientologists, walk down the street beating their drums and all that kind of stuff, and it just makes it a bit interesting that. So let's move position here again. So yeah, it's just, I don't know. It just seems a bit hokey that she goes to a meeting, and then in that one meeting she's convicted, and she goes down and an evangelist prays for her and leads her to a saving knowledge of Christ, and then she jumps to her feet and throws her gloves in the air. Hallelujah! It is done. It's like, I don't know. It's just yeah. Anyway, so yeah, this is written from a very uncritical perspective, very uncritical. So 3, 2, 1. Smith Wigglesworth, then a young man, was in the audience. He watched that young woman pray through to God, and he heard her shout hallelujah. Later he declared, it seemed as if the inspiration of God was upon her from the very first. She was a beautiful girl, and as he looked at her in simple dress and her shapely early Victorian bonnet, he thought she was lovely. He felt the first time he heard her give her testimony that she belonged to him, and soon there began an intimate friendship between Polly Featherstone and Smith. The new convert was vivacious and soon began to make large and rapid spiritual strides. Her association with Tilly Smith and her brother Rodney and brother Lawley, who later became a commissioner in the Salvation Army, brought her into contact with General Booth, who gave her a commission in his organisation without her having to undergo the usual period of training. Our young Greatheart had been greatly attracted to the army because of their splendid soul-saving ministry. So he threw himself wholeheartedly into the work of the Salvationists. In it, he found an outlet for the consuming passion for the unsaved, and he had a joyous satisfaction in watching the lives of many men and women changed by the power of the gospel. And then Polly's presence in the meeting was a great attraction to him. Her alertness and ability in the indoor services as well as in the open-air meetings, appealed to him. The officers of the Salvation Army soon recognized that there was a something between these two. It was contrary to army rules that an officer, for they had made her such, should associate with just an ordinary soldier, as they accounted our Great Heart, although he never actually became a member of the Salvation Army. One day, a major in the army drove to the home where she was working and asked if she would go with him to Leith in Scotland to help start a new work. She agreed, packed her suitcase, went off to the railroad station with the major, and in a few hours she was in Scotland. Alright, I'm going to quickly pause here just to go over some stuff. Yeah, again, I would love to have someone who knows more about the way spirituality works through a culture. Because everything I'm seeing here are just people who fervently believe the things they've been taught. It's... Yeah, I'm not actually people feel better. People feel like they're connected to something. Okay, that's what community is about. Feeling connected to something. But it's just what people being saved. What are they being saved from? And it reminds me of the old meme. Actually, I might see if I can bring the meme up. No, I need it on this screen. Yes, I think I have found it. So let me, if you are watching, I'm going to put a meme up on the screen. That Chrome tab and this one here. So that meme there is okay. So it doesn't show up on the StreamYard. So let me see if I can. Okay, let's see if that actually comes up better. That's interesting. Have a great show. Alright, let's see if I can actually find the actual... See if I can find the actual... I might see if I can look in Google instead. Because Google knows what I like. Oh, come on. That's... here we... Okay. This is... So that's it. That's it there. Let me in. Why? So I can save you. From what? From what I'm going to do to you if you don't let me in. That's a very... Oh, okay. It doesn't actually show up on this. So you've actually got to... So I'm just kind of learning how... because I need to share the actual... Let me go share again. Chrome tab. Because I open it up in another... Okay, so yeah, that's it there. Let me in. Why? So I can... so I can save you from what? From what I'm going to do to you if you don't let me in. So that's... What are you trying to do?
Send it to...
Okay. Might be easier if I just email it to you.
I tried that, but it just comes up with this.
Oh, okay.
Not the actual PDF itself.
Okay. Yeah, it's going to be... okay, so let me then... Sorry, technical difficulties. My son wants to also read the book as well. So let me see if I can actually... share book. Here we go.
Is there an airdrop?
Okay, actually, yeah, see if I can. Maybe it does... yeah, actually, I know what I can do. I know some other computer, though. Some other computer. Sorry, guys, if you're listening, watching. What does it do? No, it doesn't actually. Yeah, sorry, I'll have to...
Try to get a copy on this.
If you go to Z library. No, is it the letter Z? Yeah. Okay, so anyway, that's what Jesus will do if you don't let him in. And yeah, that's the one. Yeah, and then that top left hand where it says books, and then you can actually search for the book there. Okay, so so that's really all that it does. Is like people feel better. People don't feel so scummy. People don't feel so well.
Wiggle. Do I have to include Smith?
Yeah, it usually helps. Yeah, well, just type in Smith Wigglesworth. Yep.
Wait.
Yep, there you go. That's right. And that should be and then scroll down. So I'm just helping my son find the book. Keep going down. I wouldn't. Not that one. Not the one. That. Keep going. There's a. When you find the one on the same cover as this one. There we go. Yep, that one. Yep, EPUB. Yep, take the EPUB. And then download. Yep. Yay. So sorry about that. Just help my son find the book as well. Yeah. So all right, I'm going to get back. Otherwise, I keep getting distracted. 3, 2, 1.
What page are you on?
Page 12. In those early days of the Salvation Army, the public was very generous in contributions of overripe eggs and stale vegetables, and the Salvation Army lassies had to be alert to dodge these missiles. One day, Polly received a black eye from an orange that was donated somewhat suddenly, but none of these things moved her. She had a lovely voice and would sing and testify in the open air. Many a window and door in the nearby flats would be flung open to hear the songs and the messages of these fearless young Salvationists, and their labours were not in vain. They were greatly blessed of God in spiritual and social service. Go one more page. The first paragraph. Okay, so again, this whole thing about people writing their own history. Also, maybe people writing their own history, and 2, people uncritically accepting that history that they write. You know, it's like, yeah, it's like, you know, oh, I, you know, got, you know, we went through all these hardships, but then, you know, the magical power of my magical singing of magical words from a magical being, you know, it's like, oh, great, give me a break. While in Leith, Polly took a special interest in the well-being of a recent convert who lived on the 6th floor of a tenement house, and whose husband, who was somewhat of a brute, opposed her attendance at the meetings. Finding Polly praying with his wife one day when he returned from his work, he threatened, if she did not stop praying, to forcibly eject her. She continued to pray, and so he picked her up in his arms and carried her down the 5 flights of steps. Every step he took, she prayed, "Lord, save this man, save his soul, Lord." The man swore wildly and fumed terribly, but she had the joy of hearing him cry for mercy when he got to the last flight. Together they knelt and made a penitent form at the bottom step, where she pointed him to the Lamb of God, whose blood cleanses from all sin. Oh, sorry. Oh, Lordy, this is just frankly hilarious. It's like, you know, to believe this story, like, she literally gets picked up by a brutish man, and then on the very last flight of stairs, he suddenly becomes saved. So, oh, jeez, this is hilarious. One day in Leith, she was brought before her superior officers, who put her to a certain leading. who put to her certain leading questions relative to her attitude toward the opposite sex, they assuming that she had an interest in a local soldier. When they could obtain no satisfaction from her, they suggested that they all kneel and she should lead in a word of prayer. She began her prayer. Lord, you know these men think I am interested in a Scotchman. Lord, you know I'm not, for if what these Scotch folks say about each other is true, they are all so stingy that they would nip a currant in two to save the other half. You know I don't believe that, Lord, about these Scotch folk, for I found them to be very kind. But you know, Lord, I do not intend to marry anyone away up here in Scotland. She continued in this vein, and by the time she got through, her examiners were ready to close the interview. Polly knew there was a young man in Bradford who was desperately in love with her, and she loved him. She returned to that town, severing her connection with the Salvation Army and associating with a new and, in the estimation of some people, more spiritual group, which was called the Blue Ribbon Army. Mrs. Elizabeth Baxter, a very spiritual woman, was at the head of it, but Polly remained a true friend of the Salvation Army, often entertaining their officers. At that time, evangelistic calls came from many Methodist churches. The Spirit of God moved mightily on her ministry, and many souls were won for Christ. Okay, so this is one of the reasons why I have a problem with some modern churches is that they are like the fact that she was brought before the superior officers and questioned about her relationship with towards men. It's like what business is it of theirs if she who she wants to date. It's like I wouldn't be surprised if she did sever her connection with the army after that. Anyway, yes. Okay, you want to read these two paragraphs in? Okay. 3, 2, 1.
When Polly was 22 years of age, she was married to our great heart, who was then 23. In later years, he paid her this tribute. She became a great help to me in my spiritual life. She was always such an inspiration to holiness. She saw how ignorant I was, and immediately began to teach me to read properly and to write. Unfortunately, she never succeeded in teaching me to spell. Speaking concerning his wife, our great heart testified. She was a great soul winner. I encouraged her to continue her ministry of evangelizing. And I continued my business as a plumber. I had a burden for the parts of Bradford that had no church, and we opened up a work in a small building that I rented. As the children came, we always prayed through for them before they were born, that they would belong to God. I used to carry the children to meeting and look after them while she preached. I was no preacher myself, but I was always down at the penitent form to lead souls to Christ. Her work was to put down the net, mine to land the fish. This latter is just as important as the former.
Okay, thank you very much for that. So she's gonna move. It's so the idea of someone not knowing how to read and write, and like someone needing their wife to teach them to read and write is actually quite an interesting proposition, because in this day and age it's like, well, what do you mean you can't read and write? Everyone knows how to read and write, but
he's illiterate.
Illiterate, yes. She couldn't teach them to spell, but that's okay. Do you want to read the next paragraph?
Where?
There came to Bradford.
Oh, okay. 3, 2, 1. There came to Bradford a very severe winter, and plumbers were in great demand. It was not only through the winter period, but for the 2 years that followed, that they were having to repair fallen sprouts and other damage done by the storms. Wiggleworth and the 2 men who were helping him were kept busy from morning till night. In those days of much business and prosperity, his attendance at religious services declined, and his heart began to grow cold toward God. But the colder he became, the hotter his wife became for God. His evangelistic zeal never abated, not her prayer life. Her quiet, consistent Christian life and witness made his laxity all the more apparent, and it irritated him. One night, a climax came. She was a little later than usual in getting home from the service, and when she entered the house, he remarked, "I am the master of this house, and I am not going to have you coming home at so late an hour as this." Polly quietly replied, "I know that you are my husband, but Christ is my master." This annoyed him, and he put her out the back door. But there was one thing he had forgotten to do, to lock the front door. He went around the house and came in at the front door, laughing. She laughed so much that he had to laugh with her, and so that episode was finished.
Yeah, that's again just personal anecdotes. It's it's take with a pinch of salt. I'll read the next couple of paragraphs. 3, 2, 1. While some husbands backslide, their wives get sour and nag at them from morning till night. But that was not the way of Polly Wigglesworth. She had a merry heart, and while she was on fire for the Lord, she made every mealtime a season of fun and humour, and she wooed her husband back to the Lord and to his old-time love and zeal for God. Her fidelity was severely tested during those months when he was spiritually unsettled, but it was her gracious stability that guided him through the dangerous period, saving him from a terrible spiritual shipwreck. So again, it's just like this whole thing that almost like she's superhuman in some way, shape, or form. It's like she was so faithful that she was able to woo her husband back to the Lord, and everything worked out well in the end, and all that kind of stuff. But what Smith Wigglesworth really should have done is pray for scientific knowledge. Pray for to be a rational skeptic, to know that what he's believing is true. But the thing is, though, like back in the 1800s, the scientific method scientific advancement wasn't quite as strong as what it is today. So even if Smith Wigglesworth had the best information he could at hand, the problem is the best information he had at hand was no better than what was widely available at the time. And he's a plumber from a small British town. I don't see where Bradford actually is, because it'd be very interesting to know.
City in England.
I know it's a city in England, but I want to know where in England it is. Well, that looks very nice. Okay, so it's actually
the northern English country of West Yorkshire.
Yorkshire. Oh, so it's just outside of Leeds. So it's halfway between Leeds and Blackburn and Manchester.
Right now it's 1:34 a.m. for them.
That's why JJ's not on the line, because he's Okay, so it is actually kind of near Scotland. So if
Scotland.
So you've got this you've got this big gap between yep. So anyway, that's it there. But yeah, this whole there was a book I read, I tried to read years ago, and it was full of these. Actually, I might actually see if I can find the. Here we go, found it. This guy, Vanya, a true story of Ivan Moiseev, persecuted for his faith. And yeah, I tried to read it, but it was very, how can I say? like, if you thought that, like, rubbish personal anecdotes were really bad, then this is, like, full of even more rubbish personal anecdotes. Like, going by all this, Christians are invincible, so they should be. And if Christians are invincible, then, they should be in the army, and if you put them at the front line. But yeah, it's just.
Bradford, England, is a city that is already known as an industrial revolution boomtown that gave the world textiles, and its reputation for some of the finest curry restaurants in the UK is secure.
Okay, there you go.
Bradford's legacy extends wider than that.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you very much. Okay, back to the book. 3, 2, 1. Polly Wigglesworth's reputation as a winner of souls went far and wide, and not infrequently she will be sent to restore a work that was failing and to follow on in evangelistic services where others had failed. She was a popular preacher for women's services and quite a favourite with men's Bible classes. Untiring in zeal, she literally ate up work of all kinds, including the care of a large house. She and her husband were always given hospitality, and she never complained no matter whom he brought home suddenly for a meal or invited to stay a few days in their home. At convention times, there were always large numbers entertained in her home, but never once did she murmur. Wigglesworth had to go into Leeds one day each week to purchase plumbing supplies. In this town, he found a place where there was a divine healing meeting. There was such a note of reality in these divine healing meetings, and the Lord was so graciously healing people that he began to search for sick people in Bradford. He would pay their way to Leeds, where the prayer of faith was offered for them. Now let's just go into the where was it? Oh, okay, so Bradford to Leeds isn't actually that far, so let me just go directions. Oh, jeez, that's a... Leeds. So it's a 25-minute... So it's across town. It's a cross-town trip, 25 minutes. That's not too bad. So about 16, 20 Ks. Yes. Let's continue on the book. 3, 2, 1. At first, he said nothing to Mrs. Wigglesworth about this, for he was not sure of her reaction to this fanaticism, as most people dubbed divine healing those days. But she found out what he was doing, and since she herself had need of healing, she accompanied him one day to Leeds. There, the prayer of faith was offered for her, and she was healed by the Lord. From that time forward, she was as ardent for the truth of the Lord's healing as he was. The work in Bradford grew, and so they had to move to larger and yet larger premises until they settled in a quite large building on Boland Street. In this Boland Street mission, they had a huge text painted as a scroll on the wall back of the pulpit that everyone could see. I am the Lord that healeth thee. In the course of years, many testified of being healed through the inspiration of that verse from the Bible. But if they could be healed from the verse in the Bible, then why don't they go into hospitals and actually do healing stuff in hospitals and all that kind of stuff? I just never quite get that. But anyway, 3, 2, 1. There came to this mission a brother who had a gracious ministry of healing. When the Sunday afternoon service was over, he was invited to the Wigglesworth home for tea. During the simple meal, Mrs. Wigglesworth put the question to this minister: what would you think of a man who preaches divine healing to others, yet he himself uses medical means every day in his life? I would say that man did not fully trust the Lord, was the answer. After the meal, Wigglesworth said to this minister, when my wife was talking about one who preached divine healing to others and yet used other means himself, she was referring to me. From childhood, I have suffered from hemorrhoids, and so I deem it necessary to use salts every day. I have looked upon them as harmless natural means, for I knew that if I did not have something of this kind, I should have bleeding every day, and infection might result. But if you will stand with me in faith, I am willing to trust God in this matter and give up the salts. Since I've taken them every day for years, my system is so used to them that there will be no natural function from now until Wednesday. Will you stand with me in faith on that day? For in the natural I shall have great pain and much bleeding through not having used the salts. The brother agreed. After that Sunday, Wigglesworth did not take his daily dose of salts. On Wednesday, the crisis came. At a certain hour, he went into his bathroom. He anointed himself with oil according to James 5. We've often heard him testify in public, for he was a man of no unwholesome modesty when it came to speaking about perfectly natural things. God undertook. My bowels functioned that day like a baby's. God had perfectly healed me. From that day forward, my bowels have functioned perfectly without the use of any means whatsoever. I have proved the God who is enough. Polly Wigglesworth loved her husband enough to reprove him when he was wrong, and this was very often. Most husbands bitterly resent any criticism from their wives, but Wigglesworth always took her rebukes with a smile. His attitude was that of David, who said, "Let the righteous smite me in kindness and correct me. Oil so choice let not my head refuse." Psalm 141:5, Masoretic rendering. Even though at times he did not take full heed to her correction, there is no doubt that as a whole her admonitions had a great effect in the training of her husband's character. Oh boy, this is getting... The things that I would have eaten this up. 20 years ago, I would have just eaten this up and gone, oh yeah, this is a... Yeah, do you want to read the last two paragraphs?
Okay.
So where it says, in his plumbing work. So do you want to into the microphone?
There is... what page?
Well, on mine 14, but that one there, in his plumbing work.
Oh, okay. 3, 2, 1. In his plumbing work, Wigglesworth obtained a good deal of profitable business from saloon keepers who sent for him to repair the pumps by which they drew up the beer from their cellars. This was an abomination to Polly, who in those days kept books. She knew that the workmen who would be given free drinks in the saloons, and she knew it would have a demoralizing effect on them. She prevailed in her protests, and after a while her husband, to protect the men who were labouring for him, refused all work from saloon keepers. This meant heavy financial losses to him, but he gave it up as a matter of principle. We read in Psalm 127, "Children are an heritage of the Lord." The Lord gave to the Wigglesworths home 5 children, 1 girl, Alice, and 4 boys, Seth, Harold, Ernest, and George. George went to be with the Lord in 1915, and how greatly his loving father missed him.
Okay, that's it. That is the chapter on Smith Wigglesworth's wife. Yeah, it's... Oh boy, look, I don't know what to say except that it's just like trusting Christians' testimony about themselves is and especially when there's books to be sold, and especially when there's it's just like you just get this feeling that like either stretching the truth or just making stuff up out of whole cloth. But yeah. So anyway, that's been chapter 2 of Smith Wigglesworth, Apostle of Faith. The next chapter is called Then the Ear, and I'll read that next time. But otherwise, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, look after yourselves, stay safe. Try not to be caught up in any earthquakes. But if you want to hear more, anchor.fm/TF for Dad. And the podcast is available on all major podcasting platforms: Google, Spotify, Apple, Breaker, I think Pocket Cast. If you want more reading series, head on over to YouTube. search for the Tall Friendly Atheist Dad podcast. Otherwise, yeah, I'll be doing another reading tonight in about another 10 hours or so. And yeah, look after yourselves and enjoy this awesome music from Victim of Illusion. I am sure of myself.